In this video, we'll talk about some recent interesting and quirky stories from the world of business and finance. This roundup contains anti-work, books, supply chain, and the business of circuses. So let's get on with it. The anti-work movement. Maybe it's a stretch to call it a movement. The anti-work subreddit has been getting some attention of late, where people talk about their experiences with work, and generally encourage each other to quit their jobs, if they are dissatisfied with it. The timing is notable. In October 2020, the subreddit had 180,000 members. In January 2022, that number is closer to 1.6 million. Posts from our anti-work show up on the Reddit main page quite regularly these days, which is to say that it has gained popularity over the last few months. And it caught the attention of the mainstream media, with Financial Times writing about it recently. While the FT article tries to be neutral, it is not a stretch to say that they take a fairly anti-work stance, which could be because owners and business managers are more likely to read the article than the anti-work subreddit members. Be that as it may, it is interesting to speculate about a couple of things. First, could it be that a lot what gets discussed on the Reddit forum is, at least partly, stimulated by the stimulus money that many Americans received from their government? Second, while many of us struggle with a poor experience with our jobs, it is great to have a job in the first place. I can say that because I am on the other side of the divide. Thirdly, it is significant that America of today is one of the richest and most prosperous nations in the history of the world, which is awesome, to be clear. And in such a well-off society, talking about anti-work feels strangely meh. Fourthly, while our jobs occupy a large portion of waking time and consciousness, putting it in context and realizing that it is a means to an end is a reasonable thing to do. And finally, being unemployed sucks, and that self-employment can be a lot of hard work. The transition months of December and January bring many a write-up about reading. A lot of people on the internet tell us about the multiple dozens of books they have read, and yet more talk about the many more dozens that they'll read over the coming months. Quite often the magic number is 52. Which translates to a book a week. Usually these articles can be quite pointless, but not entirely uninteresting to peruse. You'll note that the word book has become a bit of a luxury in our times. Only good vibes need to be felt when one thinks about a book. Not unlike the word tree, it has been put on a bit of a pedestal, an object to revere even. While its brand may be stronger than ever, it is hard to say that more and more people are spending more time reading books. A few important things about reading, which get talked about sometimes but not often enough, are that, 1. You should do it if you like it. And 2. Not all writing is made equal. So if you are not enjoying a book, it may be because it is not that well written. So, don't stress about it, and go read some other book. Also, there may be an opportunity cost to reading a book. Unless it is doom scrolling on social media. In such a case the opportunity cost is less than zero. Which is to say that reading a book may be preferred over mindless scrolling on Twitter. Now, if you have made up your mind to go read some books, then I say good for you. And this FT article has some helpful tips, and can surely help you along the way. Maybe try to enjoy the journey, and not look at it as a competitive endeavor. The supply chain challenges of 2021 have fascinated us throughout the year. Notice that the key word here is fascinated, instead of bothered. What the supply chain has not done through the ups and downs of the last 12 months, is become entirely dysfunctional. The fact that it held up pretty well, even with a blocked Suez Canal, and multiple COVID disruptions at major ports across the world, tells me that it mostly worked fine. Interestingly, this write-up tries to paint a slightly different picture, telling us that things are really bad, which may not be false. And that, maybe things will always be this bad, which feels a bit of a stretch, to be honest. The usual way that an industry is supposed to work is that when prices are high, and everyone is making good money, then more new companies come in to get a share of all that profit. Earlier, if there were 2 container shipping companies, who were making a ton of money shipping containers, it is only reasonable to think that others may look at it and say, well, let's do some of that, because it seems to be profitable. It may take a little time, but surely there'll be a 3rd, and maybe a 4th, and even a 5th company shipping containers. And one of the things it'll surely do is that it'll bring down the price of shipping a container. So today, when the price of shipping a container is quite high, and the shipping lines are extremely profitable, it is only reasonable to imagine that more ships are being made, as you watch this video. These new ships will increase capacity, and make shipping containers more reasonable, and also help the shipping lines generate more revenue. I just don't think that supply chains are going to collapse in the near future, or that things will not improve. While this story talks about private equity, and bankruptcy, and billion-dollar businesses, and the pandemic, surely the most noteworthy thing here is that the circus is still a thing. And that people can still go and get entertained by skilled artists hanging upside down from a rope, and doing all sorts of amazing feats. In this time of Netflix and social media, it just feels awesome. Watching live shows, and being genuinely entertained by it, can be a bit of luxury. Which is to say that they can be expensive, and is not accessible to everyone equally. It is then no surprise that Cirque du Soleil, the largest circus company in the world, used to pull in over $1 billion in revenue, before the pandemic hit. It will also not be a surprise to know that it was bought by private equity firm, TPG in this case, and loaded with a ton of debt, as a result of which, it was one of the first companies to go into bankruptcy. As is usually the case in these scenarios, it is the little guy who gets bamboozled first, and true to form, we learn that many of the freelancers were probably not paid the dues properly. Also, everything, even a circus, is a business, and a business exists with the sole purpose of making money for the shareholders. Sometimes, this clarity of vision can be useful. So that's it for this one then. Links to the articles are in the description. And do consider subscribing, if you enjoyed the video. It goes a long way in helping out this tiny channel. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.